We'll start with MP Perkins for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, witnesses, for finally coming. I'm going to start off with a general comment to both Bell and Rogers. You operate businesses that are privileged. You operate on airwaves granted to you and owned by Canadian taxpayers. You are protected by the Canadian government. In exchange for that, we expect a little bit of responsibility, not the least of which is to show up to committee when asked to come. Mr. Steffieri, you had 5 weeks. You had 5 weeks' notice to come to this committee. Yet you chose in a few hours, a day or two beforehand, to not come. I would have expected after all of this, I would have seen you here in person today. Why aren't you here in person?
Sir, I could not attend the previous meeting. I had a personal matter arise that I was not expecting. I'm pleased to be here today and connect to you virtually, and I'm here to answer your questions.
Okay, well, that wasn't an answer. Hope my next ones will get an answer. How about this? You put in the fine print of a fixed rate contract to your customers that you have unlimited ability to jack the prices up on the set-top boxes they have, obviously without any notice because they signed it in some 20-page small print contract. Why did you feel the need, given the fact that in the first 9 months, your $5.8 billion of cable revenue produced almost $3.4 billion of gross profit, the need to jack up by $7 a box and hide it and slip it under the door with Canadians?
Very clear and transparent with our contracts as to what's included and what isn't. Our term commitments are on base TV services, and we make it clear. There are other items that are add-ons, and the customer has the discretion to include them or not. And we try to be very clear and transparent, not only in our contracts, but in our frontline agents that have the conversations with customers. So we're very clear on that. But more importantly, customers have choice. The technology's evolved so that if they don't want the set-top box, they can view the content through the TV app. I should say that the vast majority of our Ignite TV customers are not impacted by this price change. The first box is included in the base TV package, and the customer has a choice as to whether they want the premium features and experiences that the additional boxes provide.
Just to show up on the bill out of the blue, and when customers start screaming at your customer no service center, they say, too bad, it's in the fine print. That's a great customer satisfaction thing. I'd like to know why you think that's okay, and how many other buried costs do you have in the contract that you can jack up and rip Canadians off on?
As I said, we're very clear on what's included and not included. And as we go
list,
through...
please. Give me a list of the things that aren't included that you can jack up without a single notice to the customer outside of the fixed rate contract. Please give me a list.
There are price adjustments that happen on services outside of the term commitment contract. Brett Leach is here with us today and can walk through some of the specific examples of additional add-on features that the customers have choice to.
You table that with the committee, please.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate the opportunity.
You can table that with the committee because I have limited time. I've got to move on to my next questions. Mr. Leach, can you table that with the committee?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Bell, I see they lawyered up and didn't send anyone here that delivers a business, but sent the lawyer. Can you please tell me how many things you have buried in your contracts that you can jack up on fixed rate contracts? Do you do the same as Bell or as Rogers?
We have a different practice from Rogers. Our contracts for TV services are not fixed rate contracts, and we disclose very clearly to the customer that they're not. But with respect to set-top boxes specifically, we haven't increased the price of our additional set-top boxes at all in the last 5 years. And in the 5 years prior to that, it increased once by $1.
Thank you. Mr. Steffieri, You just sold your backhaul as an equity sale, the wires that connect the towers to the rest of the system when you make a cell phone call. You just sold that for $7 billion to a U.S. firm. Why is that in compliance with the ownership limits under the Telecommunications Act? And why is it you use that to pay off the debt you generated by buying more shares in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment?
We are always looking from a balance sheet perspective to have the most cost-effective structure so that we can continue to invest in the networks. We're a proud Canadian company. I said that in my opening remarks.
Proud. Why did you sell
year,
that critical infrastructure asset to an American hedge fund?
Well, we haven't closed that transaction yet. We announced our intent to enter into that transaction. And so the party is still undisclosed. But what I will tell you, that's an asset that under the structure, we will continue to manage and control.
Won't own it.
So
you won't own it. And the Telecommunications Act does not allow for an ownership over 20%. Why are you selling that critical telecommunications infrastructure other than the fact that you ran up too much debt in your other businesses, so now you're selling off the kitchen table in order to pay for the bad debts that you ran up in the other parts of your business? This is incredible that you would sell such a critical piece of infrastructure to an American hedge firm. And I quite frankly can't see that it is actually within the laws of Canada.
We are very careful in the investments and financing transactions that we enter into. And we obviously comply with all the legislation and laws of this country, first and foremost. But you should know that we are entering into that transaction with a view to increasing the amount of investments that we continue to make in infrastructure and jobs in this nation.
That's not what you said publicly. You said you're using the funds to pay off your debt, to reduce your debt to equity ratio. You're selling your Canadian assets to pay off your debt. One of those debts is you paid $4.7 billion for more shares in Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Now you're using the sale of telecommunications assets to pay off that debt. That's not focused and proud Canadian. That's selling our infrastructure to the U.S.
Okay, that's all the time you had, Mr. Perkins. Thank you.
Mr. Bessé, you have the floor.
For being here. One of the things that I've just heard Mr. Staffieri, you mentioned is that customers can get that content for free. I would suggest that there's nothing a customer of Rogers gets is for free. They've paid for it one way or another, and I think it shows the distance between where your lifestyle in life is versus where customers that we represent are, because this nickel and dime approach is significant. And the simple question I want to ask you, I really want to know, do you think it's ethically from you and your team at Rogers to have different prices for different customers based upon their advocacy? So when you look to talk to your customers right now, you have persons with disabilities that may not be able to actively engage and try to get this. You have people that can't leave a job because they're they don't have the time to actually spend 3 to 5 hours on the phone trying to get a better rate. And you have other people that were able to negotiate a different price. So explain to the Canadian public the ethics of you and your board about allowing your own customers to be divided.
What you see play out is the dynamics of a competitive marketplace. We have to compete. Just this past weekend alone, Black Friday weekend is a busy period for our industry. And so as we compete for customers, we are compelled to make sure we put the best value proposition in front of the customers. And those will vary.
And that's a
from time to
predatory
time.
practice on your own customers. Explain specifically, if you can't fight for yourself and be on the phone because maybe you're a single mom going to work, why that person should pay more, or somebody with a disability, or somebody with English as a second language, or doesn't have the skill set, or somebody to advocate for them, why they have to pay more than the person that actually has been identified to get the actual reduction. And I can tell you, not only has CBC recorded many of these stories, I have a whole bunch here that people have emailed me in. So you tell Canadians right now, specifically why some have to pay more for the same services.
As I said, we strive to provide the best value proposition for every single customer. And the pricing will depend on the time of year, when it was purchased. It'll depend on the services and products that are included. But I think it's important to stress that we aim to make it easy for customers to interact with us, whether it's by phone, whether it's digitally, whether it's through electronic chat. But most importantly,
You're okay. I just want to make sure that I get this straight. You're okay that if it's a single mom who's not able to be on the phone and get a discount, can pay more, or somebody with a disability, or somebody else that's it's okay. You guys are okay in your boardroom there with having different Rogers customers pay different amounts of money based upon their individual situation. You're okay with that?
We work with customers to make sure that we can get them the products and services that fit their budget. Just recently, after closing Shaw, we expanded our Connected for Success program. So for deserving Canadians on low income, we have programs where they can get internet for as low as $9.99. We have wireless plans at $25.
It's not the question, though. I guess, again, you've answered, I suppose, is that that's the culture of Rogers, that it's okay to be predatory on your own customers, and they can have different prices, different under the same situations for the same product. I quickly want to go over to Bell for a moment. I'd like to know specifically the items that you can increase unilaterally, and can you table that for our committee as well, so we can have a comparison of that, because that's something that you'll be able to do, please.
Yes, we can provide that information to the committee.
I have any more time? Okay. If I can go back to Mr. Stefanieri, I've got a situation here where somebody had Rogers come to their household. They play for Bell as well, too, and they're stuck in a contract they didn't want for another 2 years. What's your suggestion for that person that didn't want that service that they got, and they'll get no satisfaction? What's your suggestion? Where do they call and what do they do?
For customers who enter into term commitments with us, in the first instance, we want to be very clear on what's included and what's not included, and we provide the customer up to 10 days to look over the contract, think about it, and they can cancel within that period of time with absolutely no penalty. And so that's the flexibility. We want to make sure customers are getting into products and services that they want. It's not in our interest.
Person can do. You know what? I'll table some of these stories for my other colleagues to have, so that they'll see these. And with regards to the customers, like CBC broke the story, and there's all kinds of people that are actually complaining about this practice. Is it just basically that you just assume that your customers are stupid? Because obviously there's enough evidence here that people were confused, they had different expectations, and you haven't relented from this practice, as opposed to you saying, well, you know what, some are getting it, some aren't, some are paying for part of it, some might be paying for all of it, we don't know. Why don't you just end this practice altogether? And again, why do you think it is so many of your customers never understood your own process? Are they that dumb?
As I said at the outset, in terms of you're referring to the price adjustments on set-top boxes, the majority of our customers are not impacted by the change. One set-top box is included.
Make it all of your customers then and treat them equally. Why don't you just make them all treated equally and not have any of them disadvantaged? And by the way, just because you have the app, it's not for free. You're paying for service anyways. You're paying for that. And it's a different quality than what you're actually paying for the top box. So you're actually discriminating amongst the quality of your own customers. Why not just stop this nonsense right now and stop doing those extra billings?
As I've said, the set-top box provides premium features. Brett has walked through some of those, award-winning voice remote, a number of other features that are beyond being able to experience and view the content through the app. And so...
Sadly, you understand how tough life is for some people out there, and this all matters to them. I'm sorry, I'm done with my time, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Give myself one question, Mr. Massey, before I turn it over to MP Rempel-Garner. Mr. Staffieri, based on your knowledge of your customers, what would be just your estimate, your guess, the percentage of your customers with set-top boxes who knew about the possibility for you to adjust the price along the way? Is it 50%, 60%, 100% of your customers knew about it? What would be your guess?
Well, in advance of making the change, we notified the customers, as we do with any price adjustments. So that's first and foremost. I'm having difficulty answering your question in terms of how many customers knew that price adjustment on set-top box could happen. I wouldn't know that. But what we do is when the customer feels confused, then we work with every single customer to make sure that they have options to look at what they are. And if it's a cost that they don't want to incur, then we look for ways to work with that customer. It's in our interest to make customers happy.
Okay. MP Rempel-Garner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Staffieri, if I was a potential Rogers customer and let's say you're a sales rep for Rogers, and I called in and I was looking for a contract that guaranteed a price for 2 years for TV and internet service, what would your pitch to me be?
Well, a few things. One is we highlight the benefits and the competitive advantage of our features, the value proposition in terms of price, and the key conditions and terms. Brett can walk through what some of those key items are that we cover off with the customer.
I don't want Brett. I want you. Would you proactively tell me that if I had hardware that fee could go up outside of a guaranteed price? Would you proactively tell me that?
We're very clear with customers.
Oh, no. Would you as a sales rep in your script, would you proactively tell me that my monthly fee that guaranteed set rate would not include in potential increases to rentals? Like, would you as the sales rep, would you be like, hey, you know what? This is a monthly rate for this, but this could increase. Would that be in your sales rep script?
We're very clear on what's included in the term commitment that a customer enters into and what is outside of it. And the things outside of it don't have the price guarantee.
So now I'm still pretending to be one of your customers here. So you're doing what I think right now, what you're doing to me is I think what you're doing to your clients, where you try to dance around the salient details. So I'm asking you as a potential client, let's say, would you proactively tell me that there's a guaranteed price for this thing, but this could the hardware could increase? Is that something you instruct your sales reps to do?
We make it very clear, and that is part of the communication we have.
I'll take that as a no. Did any of your GR firms advise you, did they tell you to say that you were coming to the committee and then sub in Mr. Leach at the last minute? Was that advice that you received from any sort of professional firm?
I'm very respectful of this nation's government, and the work of this committee as well is part of that. As I said in my opening remarks.
Well, you actually, arguably, you're not answering my questions. Would you table the script that the sales rep who sold Kathy Cooper her contract with this committee that they used?
Yes, our frontline scripts is something that we can
Would that conversation
table
have
with the committee.
Would that conversation have been recorded for quality assurance and training purposes?
We do record our customer interactions.
Would you provide that conversation that your sales rep had with Kathy Cooper for this committee?
We will table that with this committee.
Thank you. Now, as part of the CBC expose on this issue, a couple of folks have suggested that you need a minimum of a university degree education to read the fine print in your contracts. Now, given that I'm going to take your answer is that you do not provide proactive disclosure to potential clients on increases in fees, because you didn't answer my question directly. I'm happy for you to refute that, but I'm going to say that your policy is to not proactively disclose that information. It sounds like you rely on the fine print. And now you've got experts saying you need a university degree to understand the fine print. Would you recommend that the committee recommend to the government that the CRTC regulate that Rogers proactively discloses, and Bell, all telcos, potential increases in costs associated with fixed rate contracts, as well as the requirement for plain language contracts?
Legislation and regulatory environment is clear and mandates a minimum level of disclosure that has to happen today in terms of what is included, what is excluded, and what is subject to potential price adjustments.
There's no plain language requirement. Is that something that you would recommend? I mean, like if you're clear about this, right? Like if you say that you provide clear advice, would you support? Would Rogers issue a press release saying that it would happily issue contracts in plain language?
We do that today. We aim and strive to communicate in very simple language. It's in our interest.
Would you table with the committee of course, with personal details redacted, the contract that you made Kathy Cooper sign so that we can evaluate whether or not we think it's in plain language or not? Would you be willing to do that?
We'd be happy to do that.
And if I reviewed that contract myself, do you think I would be able to, do you think it's reasonable for me to say that it's a plain language contract?
I think you would find it straightforward, but more importantly, if there were pieces of it that you didn't understand or you found confusing, as I said, we have a 10-day period.
How long did Kathy Cooper have to wait on hold with your rep? Could you table that with committee as well to get answers to her questions?
We will table that and provide it to the committee.
Thank you. And last thing, is this how Ted Rogers would have done business? Like, honestly, is this the ethos that Ted Rogers would have done business under?
It's in Rogers' DNA. Always has been. It continues to be today.
What is
to build
to
a
provide
business
complicated contracts?
It's focused on the customer.
Hide fees?
And there's a reason more Canadians choose to do business with Rogers than any other telecom provider.
I think I can hear Ted Rogers screaming from somewhere. So hopefully we'll be able to do him justice if you can't. Thank you.
Merci, Madame Massé. La parole est à vous.
Thank you very much. Mr. Massé, you have the floor.
Your company announced recently that pay-as-you-go option is being terminated. So before, you've had customers that had $100 that they could have pay as they go, and now they have to be enrolled to a $25 a month program. Why did you do that?
You're referring to our prepaid wireless offering, I believe. What we've done is simplified the offering. We made it a lower cost on average by enabling much more digital capability and self-serve capabilities. And for customers that previously had a prepaid balance, what we've done is offered those customers, as part of the conversion, discounts that make up for the value that they had on their prepaid card. And so they could come on for as low as $5 a month to maintain that service.
So I guess, so I got a case here. Well, this one's $25 a month, so I'll follow this up because you're saying now that could be $5. This goes exactly what I was questioning about before. Apparently, ethically, it's okay for Rogers customers to get some benefit and get a reduction and others not to get it because they're now running this system that you have here going to pay $25 a month is what's been offered. But you're saying now you can get it for $5, so I'm hoping that everybody hears this and can understand they can get this substitute at least for $5, but still that's more money than what they had before. I've got another situation here. One's come in. My daughter had internet service with Rogers as a student. She ran into financial problems with a service terminated in May of 2024. Rogers continued to bill her monthly for the full amount for the services equal to the amount she's paying for prior to termination of service and just received another bill for December 2024. I intervened on her behalf to dispute the bill, transferred to several departments. Answer still had to pay the full amount for her daughter, despite everything that they did. They disputed it, went to your legal department, and the legal department finally got a phone number, fax, and so forth, and then the legal department hung up on them. So they sent an email in and tried several times the fax, and then the legal team actually now blocked this customer that you have here. So to you, sir, there's another example of somebody has an advocate that is trying to at least fight you still, how fair do you think it is that, again, you have some customers that can be treated differently than others?
I'm not familiar with the specific example you're quoting in terms of what the facts are, and I'm not sure I understand the question. If I go back to the point on prepaid that you made, the amount of discount that they get will vary depending on how much of a prepaid balance they have. And so that's why you get differences. And certainly the customer that you refer to, we would be very happy to work with that customer to look at what the issue is. On the most recent example you quoted, as I said, really want to look into it. And if you could provide those details, we'll make sure we do the right thing for the customer.
No, I appreciate that. We'll follow up. But I guess there is a departure here. I guess, telephone internet service is essential service for Canadians. And I think the departure we have here is that I believe that everybody should be treated the same, especially since it's a public service. As Mr. Perkins noted at the beginning of this meeting, the public spectrum is actually auctioned off and is used for this companies for privilege, and they get safe harbor from foreign investments and foreign competition. And at the same time, we are sanctioning as legislators an abuse practice here through the back door by letting Canadians to be treated differently depending upon the corporate boardroom influence that they have. So I ethically have a problem with that because I represent persons with disabilities, I represent seniors, I represent all kinds of different people that don't have the same strength in terms of supports around their life to actually fight through this process. So I think there's something serious for this committee to really engage in, because we are sanctioning an abuse and a predatory practice the Canadian public, because this airwaves that we own, the spectrum, is the public's. So it's not fair for them to be treated differently from these companies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Généreux. La parole est à vous.
Thank you very much, Mr. Généreux. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the witnesses. Mr. Steffier, do you agree with me to say that the image of a business has no price?
Our reputation means everything to us.
Perfect. So in the issue that concerns us, even though you took 5 weeks before being able to appear before this committee, which some people might see as a lack of respect, but in terms of the respect you have towards your customers, do you anticipate that since CBC broke this story that you will offer credits to your customers who were overcharged $7 for each additional item in their contract? Do you think that would be the thing to do? According to CBC, it says it doesn't seem to be the case. Have you anticipated offering credits to your clients?
Start off with, again, reiterating, I have the utmost respect for this committee and the work that you do, and I'm pleased to be here today to answer your questions. In respect of our set-top box price plan adjustments, as I said, we're working with customers that have concerns to look for alternatives that are going to fit their budget based on that. The reality is, as I've said earlier, the primary determinant for price plan changes, and in the case of these set-top boxes, are the cost inputs.
Okay.
And so as we provide more and more features to make our product better and the best in the marketplace, those come with costs in terms of investments.
OK. Alors, si je comprends bien, les gens avaient déjà
So, if I've understood, people already had the set-top boxes, and they had an increase of $7 per set-top box, which is something that was written in the small print of the contract that you might increase the costs. So you've been saying since the beginning that you're living in a very competitive environment. I imagine that's it. Bell's there, Videotron, others, TELUS. So the other major players are there too. In some markets, and to refer to what Mr. Massé asked you earlier, in some markets, if I'm not mistaken, the service that you're offering is not at a price that's high enough. The competition was more expensive. If you have enough leeway to increase the price by $7 per set-top box, so there's room for you to charge more because competition must be charging more if you have that leeway.
The price we charge on a market-per-market basis will depend on a number of factors, most of which is what does the competitive landscape look like in that particular market, and can we offer a competitive service that's a value add to the customer that more than offsets the costs that we have to invest in that particular service. And it isn't always necessarily.
Monsieur Steffer, je veux pas vous couper, mais
Sorry to interrupt you. I don't want to not be respectful. But the fact that these people have to pay $7 more that they hadn't anticipated at the beginning, is that not, I'm not going to say theft, but maybe the customer already has the set-top box, and then you have a invoice that's $7 more. The box was already included in part of the expenses of the contract you had with the customer at the beginning. And so you're adding an amount to a service that already exists. The cost of the box itself hasn't changed. Am I wrong to say that?
One is, and I highlight again, the primary box is already included for free in the term package for the content. You indicate that the set-top box is still the same set-top box. There's a number of software upgrades that go into it and feature functionality that's done remotely. And all of that is something that is a cost we incur.
je suis désolé, M. Steffer, je vous arrête encore une fois.
Sorry to interrupt you now. I'm a customer of Videotron. I have been for a few years. So where I live, I don't have much choice. So I have to live with the conditions that are imposed on me. And so not too long ago, I had a communications problem. I didn't seem to have the speed that I was supposed to have. I called Videotron. The service was really good. They upgraded me. They increased the capacity on my system and updated it without charging me anything, because in my book, that's included in my service. And if there was an update, so you push a button and you're updating millions of pieces of equipment. So you're telling me, and you've said that in some contracts or in some regions of Canada, you have to increase the price because you're in an even more competitive environment. But we agree, we're increasing a price in places where you had that margin in terms of competitiveness. You could increase the price because the competition charged more. So I'm trying to say that what you're doing is that you're increases the prices when you can do it and not do it elsewhere when you're not able to do it.
Sir, if I could just clarify a couple of things. One is the question you're referring to relates to set-top boxes, and those come at additional costs to us. The example you gave was with respect to internet speeds that you were paying for and weren't getting with Videotron. When our customers call and they're not getting what they expected in terms of our core service of internet, which isn't very often, we make sure they get not only the speeds that they're paying for, but in many cases even more than that. And as an industry, we go through what we call a surprise and delight. We want to over-deliver on customer expectations and not under-deliver.
Monsieur Steffer, je suis désolé de vous dire qu'avec le nombre de clients qui ont...
Mr. Steffer, I'm sorry to tell you what the number of customers who complained and were talking to you about this is because there are customers at Rogers that have problems with service and connection. Thank you.
MP Patser, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for finally appearing at our committee, Mr. Staffieri. Direct most of my questions towards you here. The Liberal government created a smaller, less competitive telecommunications market in Canada when they allowed Rogers to merge with Shaw. And since then, can you please tell this committee how many people that worked for Rogers before no longer work for Rogers since the takeover in 2023?
Well, a couple of things I'd like to clarify. Rogers coming together with Shaw brought more competition to the West. That
How many,
was,
sir? How many jobs? How many jobs? How many people are no longer working for Rogers that were working for Rogers previously, or how many people that were brought over from Shaw are no longer working for Rogers since 2023?
I won't provide you a specific number, but I will tell you that we continually look for efficiencies in different parts of the business, and we look to deploy those resources to other growing areas of the business.
Okay, so I'm just, Mr. Staffieri, there was a memo that was circulated amongst the company. This was reported on by the Globe and Mail, that there are 1,200 employees who no longer work for Rogers after a memo with your name on it went out. Are there more initiatives like that underway, or have there been more that have happened since those 1,200 people departed your company?
As I said, there are areas in our business where we invest and we create opportunities and employment across the nation, particularly with respect to infrastructure investments that we make. On balance, we continue to increase the investments we make year after year. Just last year, I quoted the number of $4 billion, and we'll continue to increase that because we believe in the nation, we believe in our business and investing in infrastructure.
So how many jobs in Western Canada have you created since the merger with Shaw? How many jobs have you created? Just the number, please.
Yeah, we've created almost 2,000 jobs, 1,800 to be specific, and that includes the repatriation of call center jobs that were offshore. We're the only Canadian telecom company where all our frontline interactions and representatives are here in Canada.
So you've been trimming off jobs. You sent memos with it's all got your name on it. You've already got rid of 1,200 other jobs, and apparently there's more coming with a second round that's got your name on it as well too. So you're telling me on one hand you're creating jobs, but yet you've been laying people off, buying people out across the company otherwise. So I mean, like what's going on here?
Sir, I'm not at all clear on what memo you're referring to. As I said, we're focused on making the right investments in the right areas of our business, and we're confident in our growth prospects and the opportunities that we create for Canadians and for our employees.
So you're saying that the report in the Globe and Mail of a memo that went out with your name on it, saying that under areas where the company was underperforming was going to experience some cuts, and 1,200 employees no longer work for Rogers because of that initiative. You're saying that is fake news.
I'm not going to comment on the Globe and Mail's reporting. What I am telling you is that we continue to look for areas to invest, and our track record is one of investment and growth in this country.
So yes or no, did you lay off 1,200 people? Yes or no?
Different parts of our organizations went through and have gone through and will continue to go through different dynamics in terms of some are growth areas, some are areas where we can find efficiencies. And as I said, we always strive to look to if there's a particular role that becomes duplicative, as we came together with Shaw, we always look to find opportunities for talent in other parts of the organization.
Okay, so you're saying that those people just experienced it differently, I guess. Do you think that competition is robust in rural broadband in Canada?
Well, there's a couple of things embedded in your question. In terms of rural, one of the things that is top of mind for all of us is connectivity for all Canadians and coverage. And we're working with different levels of government to increase connectivity where we don't currently have services today, both through deploying fiber, but importantly through our 5G wireless network, and we've been deploying successfully 5G home internet.
Okay, so just on that here briefly, just quickly, I looked online. We got Rogers and Bell with us here today at this meeting, and both of you offer the exact same service for the exact same price. So if there was a healthy, competitive ecosystem in Canada, do you not think that there should be, or there would be, a difference in both price and product delivery?
In a competitive environment, you can expect price variation at different times, as I've talked about, and you can expect competitors to look to what the competition is doing. That's what brings more value for consumers and continues to bring prices down. And as has been quoted earlier in this session, has caused pricing to come down. In the last year alone, wireless prices have come down 10.8% based on Statistics Canada. On the wireline side, they've come down 9%, and they've come down even more in the West as a result of the increased competition that Rogers brought to the West.
How many new homes have you guys connected to broadband based on your $1 billion fund that you supposedly had set aside for investment in rural broadband? How many households have you connected with that fund?
We can get you the specific numbers in terms of what the latest is that's been connected as a result of the $1 billion in the West that you're referring to, but there's still more to do on that. And I think it's more about homes passed than necessarily how many are actually connected, because we want to earn the business of every home that we pass. I talked about it in terms of 5G home wireless home internet as well, and soon satellite coverage as well. We've been leading and investing in satellite technology and bringing that coverage to Canadians as well.
Okay, thank you,
Mr.
MP.
So I don't have to have the exact number. I know that Mr. Patzer has identified the number of layoffs that took place, but Mr. Staffieri, why do you, and can you confirm that you require non-disclosure agreements for people to get severance pay?
In terms of any employment separation that we have standard terms around that. As is very typical, non-disclosure of certain things relating that are proprietary to Rogers would be part of that as well, if that's what you're referring to.
Percentage of layoffs require a non-disclosure agreement.
And that would be very typical in the industry and in the Canadian landscape.
I'm asking about yours. What percentage do you and have you denied anyone severance pay if they didn't sign the non-disclosure agreement? What happens then?
Well, as I said, on any employment separation, being careful with my words because every situation is different, and there are different legislative requirements in different jurisdictions, and so we vary based on a number of factors in terms of what it would look like in terms of particular terms relating to an employment separation agreement.
The challenge we have here is that since the Liberals approved the takeover of Shaw, we've seen Rogers employees and Shaw employees fired, and I guess maybe the government may have some regrets of then making those employees have to sign non-disclosure agreements. We could have maybe perhaps put that in the terms and conditions, but what do you have to say to, like, I've got a number of former employees here who feel they've been bullied into signing a non-disclosure agreement. Do you have any words to them? Some of them have been a loyal Rogers employee for upwards of a decade.
As I said, every situation has been different, and we've been working with employees to find alternative opportunities for them. And in cases where we just don't have that, it's our policy and our intent to make sure we work respectfully with the situation of every individual that leaves this company.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Massé. Monsieur Perkins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Massé. Mr. Perkins?
Mr. Staffieri, I'm going to go back to a question you were asked earlier. So how many people How many of your customers were impacted by this $7 surprise increase?
We don't disclose the exact number, but I think it's important to highlight, as I did at the outset, that the majority of customers were not impacted.
Ask you that. I asked for the number, and you know we have the ability as Parliament to ask for the production of documents. I may do so since you're trying to hide how many people have been affected. You were very proud that when somebody's technology gets upgraded, do you automatically send out a new updated box to people, or do you keep charging them the extra $7 on an old box?
Well, one of the upsides of technology today is that we can download software remotely and increase the functionality in a very cost-effective way that the box can provide to the customer. And so while the customer may not see a change in the physical box all the time, there are upgrades.
Actually, you can't upgrade the hard drive. You can't upgrade any of the hardware in it. You're more than willing to let the person still have an old box, but charge them higher and higher prices for that box in your small print. You don't proactively go out and ask them to switch. Now, I'm going to move back onto the backhaul. You saw the fiber optic connects your towers to the system for all your cell phones. You've sold for $7 billion to U.S. interest. You said it was equity. Blackstone says that they're going to get $400 million a year revenue. Can you tell us what pricing guarantees you gave Blackstone so that they can guarantee their $400 million annual revenue from Canadian customers to that U.S. hedge fund?
To date, we've disclosed our intent to enter into a transaction that's very generally described as a joint venture in the sale of some of our backhaul. We have not concluded on term. I'm sorry, sir.
$7 billion worth. It's just not some. It's $7 billion. So I'm asking you, what pricing guarantees have you given them? They've come out and said they'll get $400 million a year from you. So you must have given them some minimum pricing guarantees in order to ensure that.
We have not concluded a transaction. As I said, we
can answer the question. I would ask for unanimous consent from the committee to ask Rogers to produce the agreement that they have to date with Blackstone, please.
Say that again, Mr. Perkins.
I would like the committee to ask Rogers to table the document on the details of their agreement with Blackstone to date.
Well, I think, Mr. Perkins, the committee can ask for it, and then is there a need for a motion with UC? I don't think there is a need, but the committee can ask for it, and you can answer it.
Okay. Well, we'll expect then that we'll get something from Rogers on that. I'd like to move to the CRTC ruling about a year ago that said that in order to foster competition and more competition in Canada, that other providers will be allowed on the existing provider's fiber op to provide better pricing. Rogers lobbied since that time 59 times the federal government, and Bell 34 times to try and change that decision to prevent competition. And lo and behold, they got their wish recently when the Liberal minister said, yeah, it's okay, CRTC, we're sending you a request, an order to reconsider that you not allow any other competitors in Ontario and Quebec on Bell, Rogers, TELUS, or Bell and Rogers fiber op. Why do you say you prefer and support competition when actually you're lobbying against the ruling that would provide more competition, Mr. Steffieri?
Healthy competition comes with healthy investment, and healthy investment means that the participant is willing to take risks, and that's what we do here at Rogers, is we invest our capital, we invest our shareholder money, we borrow so that we can invest in connectivity. And that's the premise of, and what's been a cornerstone of having the best networks in the world.
Operating profits on the cable side of 50% before taxes, that's a pretty healthy profit margin. So I would say that this is a very profitable business on airway spectrum that is a Canadian asset owned by Canadian taxpayers that you're allowed to rent. And when the CRTC orders more competition and you lobby against it, that's obviously in your business interest, but not in the interest of consumers, because more competitors means lower prices. So I will ask you again, why are you lobbying against the CRTC decision to allow for more competitors on the fiber optic network?
As I've said, we encourage competition on the back of capital at risk and investment. You refer to spectrum. We invest more than any other telecom operator in spectrum in this country. We bid on.
Want you to bid on all spectrum, even if you don't need it, in order to block the competitors. I've had executives, former executives, tell me at Rogers that your policy is to bid and buy it all and block it from other people. Is that not the case?
We're very careful in what we invest in, and we invest in what we need to have the best networks. And so in the spectrum auctions, we actively deploy all the spectrum we purchase. It's in our interest to do that, to create the best customer environment when it comes to wireless networks.
So just to conclude, Mr. Chair, I requested from Rogers, and I think I have the committee's agreement, for Rogers to table with this committee the preliminary document that you've signed with Blackstone on the backhaul. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins.